I returned from the dead and found my daughter cleaning floors in the mansion I bought for her. The first thing she gave me wasn't a hug. It wasn't a scream of joy. It wasn't even a look of recognition. She gave me half of a stale piece of bread and whispered, "Please take this and leave before they see you." Standing there in the freezing rain outside my own front door, holding that piece of bread in my trembling hand, I realized something terrible had happened while I was gone. Before I tell you how I destroyed the people responsible, you need to understand what I saw that night. My name is Conrad Vance. I am 75 years old, and for the last 15 years, most people believed I was dead. Some thought I had been murdered overseas. Others thought I was rotting in a prison somewhere in Africa. The truth was complicated, ugly, and expensive. What mattered was that I had survived. For 15 years, one thought kept me alive through every betrayal, every beating, every night spent wondering if I would ever see home again. My daughter, Lily. The plane landed in Boston just after sunset. Rain hammered against the windows, as if the city itself was trying to wash away the past. I sat alone in the back of a black SUV, watching familiar streets slide past. Every corner carried a memory. Every building reminded me of a life I had lost. 15 years earlier, I had left behind a thriving business empire, a beautiful wife, and a little girl who believed her father could fix anything. Now I was returning as an old man, carrying more scars than hopes. The driver pulled to the curb in Beacon Hill. I stepped out and stared at the mansion. Number 42. 4 stories of red brick and black iron fencing. I remembered the day I bought it. Lily had been 10 years old. She ran through the empty rooms, pretending she was a princess, exploring her castle. She laughed so hard she nearly fell down the grand staircase. I promised her that no matter what happened, this house would always belong to her. That promise haunted me as I stood outside the gate. The mansion looked perfect from the street. Fresh paint, new landscaping, expensive cars parked in the driveway. Anyone passing by would assume the family living there was prosperous and happy. They would be wrong. Something felt off the moment I approached the front door. The curtains were always closed. No lights shone from the upper bedrooms. The house looked alive, but it felt dead. I pressed the doorbell. The chime echoed through the house. No answer. I pressed it again. This time I heard shouting from inside, a woman's voice. Sharp, angry, cruel. Then silence. Several seconds later, the door opened a few inches. At first, I didn't recognize her. How could I? The woman standing before me looked 20 years older than she should have. Her cheeks were hollow. Dark circles hung beneath exhausted eyes. Her hands were red, cracked, and swollen from chemicals and hard labor. She wore an oversized MAID uniform stained with bleach. A cleaning rag hung from her apron pocket. For a moment, I simply stared. Then she looked up, and I saw my wife's eyes staring back at me. My heart stopped. Lily, my little girl, my daughter, 35 years old now, yet somehow looking more broken than any prisoner I had met overseas. She didn't recognize me. Why would she? I had aged 15 years. My beard was gray. My face was lined with scars. To her, I was just another old stranger standing in the rain. "Can I help you?" she asked quietly. Her voice shook. Not from cold, from fear. Before I could answer, she glanced nervously over her shoulder, as if someone inside might be listening. Then she reached into her apron pocket and pulled out half a stale bread roll. "Please take this," she whispered. "You shouldn't be out here in weather like this." I couldn't speak. My throat closed. My daughter thought I was homeless. The heir to everything I had built was handing food to a stranger because she believed he needed it more than she did. Lily. I finally managed. The name slipped out before I could stop myself. She froze. For a split second, confusion crossed her face. Then fear returned. "How do you know my name?" she asked. Before I could answer, another voice exploded from somewhere inside the house. "Lily!" The sound hit her like a gunshot. She visibly flinched, her shoulders tightened. The fear in her eyes became absolute terror. I knew that reaction. I had seen it in abuse victims before. "Please go," she whispered urgently. "You have to leave," the voice shouted again. "Lily, where are you?" She shoved the bread into my hand and started closing the door. Just before it shut, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A bruise, dark purple, half hidden beneath her sleeve. Someone had grabbed her arm hard enough to leave fingerprints. The door closed. The lock clicked. I stood there frozen in the rain, staring at the wood separating me from my daughter. Rage boiled inside me, but confusion hit even harder. What had happened here? Why was Lily dressed like a servant? Why was she terrified? Why was she bruised? And who had just screamed at her like that? I stepped away from the porch and moved toward the side of the house. A ground floor window glowed faintly through the rain. I carefully approached and looked inside. What I saw shattered whatever hope remained in my heart. Lily was on her knees scrubbing the marble floor, while an older woman sat comfortably at the kitchen island, drinking wine and criticizing her work. The woman looked familiar. Then I recognized her. Pamela, my late wife's sister. The woman I trusted to help my family while I was gone. The woman who was supposed to protect Lily. Pamela pointed toward a stain on the floor, and Lily immediately dropped lower, apologizing even though she had done nothing wrong. It wasn't a conversation. It wasn't discipline. It was obedience. My daughter wasn't living there. She was serving there. Then Pamela said something that made my stomach twist. "Move faster," she snapped. "Unless you want your son to suffer." "Son?" I leaned closer to the glass. Lily lowered her head. Tears appeared in her eyes. "Please," she whispered. "I've done everything you've asked." Pamela smiled. It wasn't the smile of family. It was the smile of someone who knew they controlled another person's life. At that exact moment, I realized two things. First, my daughter was trapped. Second, I had a grandson I had never met. Then Pamela leaned forward and spoke words that changed everything. "Remember, Lily, if you ever disobey me, your son pays the price." My hands clenched into fists. I didn't know who the boy was. I didn't know where he lived. I didn't even know his name. But I knew one thing. Somebody was using my grandson to control my daughter. And before the night was over, I was going to find out exactly who that child was, and why everyone seemed terrified of him. I stood outside the kitchen window, with the rain running down my face and my daughter's bread still crushed in my hand. And for the first time in 15 years, I felt something colder than fear. I felt guilt. Not the ordinary guilt of a father who missed birthdays and graduations, but the kind that crawls under your skin and whispers that while you were fighting to survive, the people you loved were being slowly destroyed. I wanted to break the window, drag Pamela out by her throat, and demand answers right there on the wet stones of the garden. But I had survived too long by acting on anger. Anger was loud. Anger made mistakes. Anger got men killed and women punished. If I charged into that house now, Pamela would scream, the police would come, and Lily would be left standing between a ruined father and the woman who controlled her child. So I forced myself to step back into the shadows. Through the glass, I watched Pamela rise from the kitchen island with a wine glass in one hand and a silk robe wrapped around her like she was queen of a kingdom she had stolen. "You embarrassed me at the door," Pamela said. Lily kept her head down and scrubbed harder. "I'm sorry, Aunt Pamela, Aunt Pamela." The words cut into me. Not because Lily called her aunt, but because of the way she said it, like a servant addressing the person who owned her breath. Pamela circled her slowly. "You were talking to him too long. He was just an old man in the rain. And you fed him?" Lily stopped moving. "He looked hungry." Pamela laughed softly. "Of course he did. Beggars always look hungry. That is how they survive. They make weak people feel guilty." Lily said nothing. Pamela leaned down close to her face. "You have always been weak, just like your father." My body went still. Lily's hand froze on the floor. Pamela saw the reaction and smiled, pleased that she had found the wound. "Don't look at me like that," she said. "You know it's true. Conrad Vance was a coward. He stole, he ran, and he left the rest of us to clean up the disaster." Lily's voice was barely a whisper. "Please don't talk about him tonight." "Why not? Does it still hurt to hear the truth?" Pamela asked. "He abandoned you, Lily. He abandoned your mother. He abandoned that child upstairs in the hospital bed, who needs money we do not have, because your father left debts we are still paying." Hospital bed. My grandson was in a hospital. The words slammed into me harder than any prison guard's fist. I pressed my hand against the brick wall to steady myself. Lily wiped her eyes with the back of her wrist, leaving a gray streak of dirty water across her cheek. "I know what he did," she said, but her voice broke on the last word. "I know." Pamela straightened. "Good. Then stop feeding strangers and start remembering who keeps Leo alive." Leo. My grandson had a name. Pamela turned away. But then she stopped at the door and looked back. "You will sleep in the attic tonight. Brandon is using your room for storage." Lily looked up quickly. "But Leo's medical papers are in there. I need to check his prescription schedule." Pamela's face hardened. "You will check what I allow you to check." "Aunt Pamela, please," the doctor said. "If he misses one dose, then you should have chosen a better father for your son." Lily flinched, as if she had been slapped. Pamela opened the kitchen door and disappeared into the hall, leaving Lily alone on her knees in the cold light. For several seconds, my daughter did not move. Then she pressed both hands over her mouth to stop herself from sobbing. I watched her bend forward until her forehead nearly touched the floor she had just cleaned. I had seen men break under interrogation. I had seen soldiers cry for their mothers. But nothing in my life had ever hurt, like watching my daughter try to cry silently so her abuser would not hear. That was the moment I understood Pamela's real weapon. It wasn't money. It wasn't the house. It wasn't even Leo's illness. It was the story she had fed Lily for 15 years. A story where I was the monster. A story where Pamela was the savior. A story that made Lily believe suffering was the price she had to pay for my sins. I moved away from the window before I lost control. At the end of the alley, a black sedan waited with its headlights off. Hartman, my attorney and the only man in Boston who knew I had returned, stepped out when he saw my face. "Conrad?" he asked. "Get in," I said. "We have a problem." The warmth inside the car felt offensive after seeing Lily on that floor. Hartman handed me a towel, but I didn't take it. I stared at the mansion through the rain-streaked window. "Did you see her?" he asked carefully. "Yes." "And?" I turned to him. "She thinks I abandoned her. She thinks I stole money and left debts. She thinks Pamela saved her." Hartman's jaw tightened. "Then Pamela has been preparing this for a long time. There's a boy," I said. "Leo, Lily's son. He's sick, hospitalized, maybe long-term. Pamela is using him to control her." Hartman leaned back slowly. "You have a grandson." I let the words settle between us. Grandson. A boy with my blood, or at least my daughter's heart, lying somewhere in a hospital while monsters used his breathing as a leash around his mother's neck. "Find him," I said. "Every hospital in Boston, every pediatric cardiac unit, every insurance record. I want his full name, diagnosis, attending physician, billing history, everything. That may take time." I looked at him. "No, it won't." Hartman nodded once. He knew that tone. 15 years ago, that tone had moved bankers, ministers, generals, and men who thought they could not be moved. He opened his laptop while the driver pulled away from Beacon Hill. I stayed silent, but inside my mind I was rebuilding the battlefield. Pamela had Lily emotionally trapped. She had Leo medically trapped. She had rewritten my past. The question was how. Lies require repetition, but a lie this large needed paper, bank statements, court filings, letters, bills, fake proof. Pamela could not have done it with words alone. Somewhere there was a trail. There was always a trail. Hartman worked for 20 minutes without speaking. Then he said, "I found a Leo Vance." My chest tightened. "Where?" "Mercy Children's Hospital. 8 years old. Treated for congenital heart complications and respiratory distress. Multiple admissions over the last 5 years. 8 years old. I had missed his entire life." "Is Lily listed as mother?" "Yes." He hesitated. "No father listed." I closed my eyes. "What else?" "The billing records aren't public, but there are repeated references to charity care, private supplements, and a family-managed payment arrangement. Family-managed means Pamela. Most likely." Hartman scrolled again. "Conrad, there is something else. Lily has almost no independent financial footprint. No active credit cards. No driver's license renewal in 5 years. No employment record outside domestic work listed under a private household account. Whose household? Pamela Vance." I laughed once, but there was no humor in it. "She put my daughter on the books as staff. It appears so. Find the mail." Hartman looked at me. "What?" "If Pamela convinced Lily I was a criminal and a debtor, she had to control what Lily received. Court notices, trust statements, hospital letters, anything from me. Find out where Lily's mail goes." Hartman's fingers moved quickly. After a while, he stopped. "There is a forwarding history." "To where?" "Originally 42 Beacon Hill. Then, about 12 years ago, all certified mail addressed to Lily Vance began requiring household signature release. Meaning? Someone at the house signed for her mail, Pamela. He didn't answer, which was answer enough. Then he opened another file and his expression changed. Conrad, say it. There are trust correspondence logs. Annual notices were sent to Lily for 15 years. Education provisions. Medical provisions. Estate protection updates. They were delivered. My blood turned cold. Signed by Lily? Hartman looked at me. No. Signed by Pamela. The car seemed to shrink around me. The rain outside blurred into silver lines. 15 years of letters. 15 years of proof that I had not abandoned her. 15 years of messages that could have saved my daughter from believing the worst of me. Pamela had intercepted them all. She didn't just steal money, I said quietly. She stole my voice. Hartman closed the laptop halfway. We need to move carefully. I know. If Pamela has controlled Lily this long, Lily may defend her. I know. If you reveal everything too fast, Lily may break. I turned toward the window again. In my mind, I saw Lily's face when I said her name. Fear first, then confusion, then panic. She didn't see her father. She saw danger. That was Pamela's masterpiece. She had not locked Lily in chains. She had taught Lily to hold the chains herself. I need proof before I speak, I said. Proof Lily can touch. Proof she can read. Proof that survives Pamela screaming over it. Hartman nodded. Then we start with the hospital and the mail records. No, I said. We start with the house. He frowned. Conrad, Pamela knows I'm back. She saw me at the door. Did she recognize you? Not clearly, but she will think about it. People like Pamela don't ignore ghosts. She'll talk. And when she talks, I want to hear every word. Hartman studied me for a long second. You want surveillance. I want the truth. If we are careless, it becomes inadmissible. Then we won't be careless. I reached into my coat and pulled out the small black device I had carried across 3 borders, hidden inside a shaving kit. I placed one under the kitchen island when I pretended to stumble near the service entrance. Hartman stared at it, then at me. You were inside? Not enough. Conrad, you are 75, and Pamela is still breathing, so apparently I am showing restraint. Hartman exhaled slowly and connected the receiver to his phone. Static hissed through the speaker. Then Pamela's voice came through, clear as glass. Brandon, pour me another drink. That girl has ruined my nerves. A younger male voice answered from somewhere nearby. Lily always ruins everything. Brandon, Pamela's son. I remembered him as a spoiled young man with soft hands and hungry eyes. Apparently, he had grown into exactly what his mother had trained him to be. Pamela said, "The old beggar at the door bothered me." Brandon laughed. "Mom, you are scared of homeless people now?" He looked familiar. My hand tightened around the bread in my pocket. "Familiar how?" Brandon asked. Pamela paused. Like a bad memory. "You think it was him?" Brandon's voice changed. Not mocking now. Alert. Pamela snapped. "Don't be ridiculous. Conrad is dead or buried in some foreign prison. And even if he crawled back, what could he do? He has nothing. No money, no documents. No daughter who would believe him." Brandon chuckled. "Lily hates him more than we do." Pamela's laugh was soft and satisfied. As she should. I made sure of that. The words landed in the car like a loaded gun placed on a table. Hartman looked at me, but I didn't move. I listened. Pamela continued. Every year, she waited for a birthday card. Every year, I burned whatever came. By the time she stopped asking, she was mine. My vision narrowed. Hartman's face hardened. Brandon said, "And the trust letters?" Pamela made a dismissive sound. "Shredded. Every one of them. The poor thing still thinks the hospital bills are drowning us. She scrubs floors like a saint because she believes Leo's medicine depends on my generosity." Brandon laughed. "That's almost beautiful." "It is practical," Pamela said. "Fear makes better servants than gratitude." I closed my eyes. For 15 years, I had dreamed of coming home to hold my daughter. I had imagined tears, forgiveness, confusion, maybe anger. I had not imagined this. I had not imagined sitting in a car in the rain, listening to my own family describe my daughter's suffering as housekeeping strategy. Then Lily's voice came faintly through the device. "Aunt Pamela?" Pamela snapped, What now? May I call the hospital before bed? Just to check on Leo. Brandon groaned. God, she's exhausting. Pamela said, No, you may not. The nurses have work to do. Your anxiety is not their problem. Please. He was coughing this morning. Then pray harder. Lily's breath hitched. Please don't be cruel. Silence followed. Then Brandon's footsteps, heavy, slow. What did you say? He asked. Lily's voice shrank. Nothing. No, I heard you. You called my mother cruel. Pamela said calmly. Apologize. I'm sorry. Not to me, Pamela said. To Brandon. You upset him. Another silence. Then Lily whispered, I'm sorry, Brandon. He laughed under his breath. That's better. I leaned forward, every muscle in my body locked. Hartman put one hand on my arm, not to stop me physically, to remind me of the war. Pamela said, Go upstairs. Attic. No dinner tonight. Maybe hunger will teach you manners. Lily didn't argue. I heard the faint sound of her footsteps moving away. Each step sounded smaller than the last. When she was gone, Brandon said, You really think the old man could come back? Pamela answered, If he does, we use Lily. She won't let him near Leo. She thinks Conrad is the reason her son suffers. That is the beauty of it. If the father returns, the daughter will push him away for us. I sat back slowly. There it was. The wall between us. Not locked doors, not police, not money. My own daughter's hatred. Pamela had built it brick by brick, with stolen letters, fake bills, and 15 years of whispered poison. Hartman turned off the speaker. We have enough to start. No, I said. We have enough to be angry. I need enough to end them. I opened my hand and looked at the stale bread Lily had given me. It had gone soft from the rain, crushed into a shapeless lump. My daughter had nothing, yet she still gave. Pamela had millions, yet she only took. That difference told me everything I needed to know about who Lily really was beneath the fear. Tomorrow, I said, we go to Mercy Children's Hospital. Hartman nodded. And tonight? I looked back toward Beacon Hill, toward the dark attic window where my daughter was probably lying awake, hungry, blaming herself for pain she never caused. Tonight, I said, we listen. The device crackled again before Hartman could shut it down completely. Pamela's voice returned, lower this time, speaking to Brandon. Make sure Lily never sees the old mailbox in the storage room. If she finds even one of Conrad's letters, everything we built could fall apart. Brandon replied, Relax, Mom. She will never go in there. Pamela laughed. Good. Because if Lily ever learns her father wrote to her every single month, she won't just hate us, she'll destroy us. I looked at Hartman. He looked at me. Neither of us spoke. We didn't need to. For the first time that night, the battlefield had a door, a storage room, a box of stolen letters. And somewhere inside that house was the proof that my daughter had been lied to since the day I disappeared. 3 hours after discovering Pamela had stolen 15 years of letters from me, I found myself standing across the street from Mercy Children's Hospital. I had imagined meeting my grandson 1,000 different ways during those long years overseas. In every version, I was younger, healthier, stronger. I imagined teaching him to ride a bike, taking him fishing, or embarrassing him at school events the way grandfathers are supposed to. Instead, I was standing outside a hospital, wondering whether he would survive long enough for me to tell him who I was. Hartman met me near the entrance with a folder in his hand. Room 614, he said quietly. Leo Vance, 8 years old, congenital heart condition, multiple surgeries, multiple hospitalizations. My stomach tightened. How bad? Hartman hesitated. Bad enough that doctors are discussing another procedure. I stared at the building. Every second I had lost suddenly felt heavier. 15 years away from Lily. 8 years away from Leo. Entire lives stolen. Can Pamela stop Lily from seeing him? I asked. Not legally, but... Hartman sighed. According to the records, Pamela controls most of the financial decisions. Lily signed power of attorney documents years ago. Of course she did, I muttered. Pamela never controlled people through force alone. She controlled them through paperwork. We entered the hospital and took the elevator to the 6th floor. I wasn't planning to introduce myself. Not yet. I needed to see him first. Through the small window in room 614, I finally saw my grandson. He looked smaller than I expected, thin arms, pale skin, dark hair falling over his forehead. A tablet rested on his lap while wires connected him to machines that beeped steadily beside the bed. But his eyes were alive, sharp, curious, intelligent. He looked up from the screen and asked a nurse 3 questions in less than 10 seconds. The nurse laughed and shook her head. Even from the hallway, I could tell he was the kind of child who noticed everything. Something inside me broke and healed at the same time. "That's him," I whispered. Hartman nodded. I remained there longer than I should have, watching, memorizing, trying to recover 8 years that could never be returned. Then Leo looked toward the door. For a split second our eyes met through the glass. He frowned, not frightened, curious, as if he was trying to solve a puzzle. I stepped away before he could ask questions. An hour later, I sat in the hospital cafeteria reviewing records Hartman had obtained. Most of them were exactly what I expected. Medical reports, insurance disputes, surgical consultations. Then one document caught my attention. "What is this?" I asked. Hartman looked down. "Adoption records." I froze. "Adoption?" He nodded. "Leo isn't Lily's biological son." For several seconds, I simply stared at him. "That can't be right." "It is." He slid another document across the table. 8 years ago, a residential fire killed a married couple in western Massachusetts. Leo was the sole survivor. I read the names twice. I didn't recognize them. How did Lily become involved? According to the records, she volunteered during his recovery. The child had no surviving relatives willing to take custody. I looked at the paperwork again. And Lily adopted him? Yes. I leaned back slowly. Hours earlier, I thought discovering Leo existed was the surprise. Now I was learning something even more important. My daughter had spent years being emotionally abused, financially controlled, and treated like a servant, yet she had still chosen to save an orphan child. Not because she had money, not because she had security, because she couldn't leave him alone. For the first time since returning home, I felt proud, truly proud. Pamela had poisoned Lily's life, but she had failed to poison Lily's heart. "What caused the fire?" I asked. Hartman opened another file. "Officially, electrical malfunction. And unofficially?" He looked at me carefully. "There are irregularities." I knew that word. Investigators use it when they don't want to say something smells wrong. "Show me." Hartman handed me the report. The deeper I read, the more uncomfortable I became. Witness statements missing, security footage lost, insurance payouts delayed, investigators reassigned. None of it proved a crime, but together it formed a pattern. Someone had wanted the case buried quickly. Then I reached the final page. My eyes stopped moving. "Hartman." "What?" I pushed the document toward him. A single company name appeared near the bottom. A private contractor hired to inspect the property after the fire. Hartman's face changed immediately. He recognized it too. "That's impossible." Apparently not. The company had once belonged to a subsidiary of my old business empire, a company controlled by executives I trusted before my disappearance. The same circle of people connected to the collapse of my life 15 years ago. Suddenly, the room felt smaller. The fire wasn't random anymore. Leo wasn't just a child Lily happened to adopt. Somehow, his story was connected to mine. "Run everything," I said quietly. "The fire, the parents, the insurance records, every employee involved." Hartman nodded. "You think there's a connection?" I looked through the cafeteria window toward the hospital wing where Leo was resting. I don't believe in coincidences anymore. My phone vibrated. A text message appeared from one of Hartman's investigators. He had been watching Pamela's house all morning. The message contained only one sentence. "Lily just arrived at the hospital." I stood immediately. Through the glass hallway overlooking the parking lot, I saw her climbing out of an old sedan carrying flowers she probably couldn't afford. She looked exhausted, but the moment she entered Leo's room, everything changed. She smiled. Leo smiled. The entire world seemed lighter around them. I watched from a distance as she adjusted his blanket, checked his medication chart, kissed his forehead, and listened to every word he said as if nothing else mattered. No fear, no obedience. No Pamela, just a mother and her son. Then Leo asked her something. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw the reaction. Lily's smile disappeared. She looked toward the door nervously before answering. Leo frowned. Then he looked disappointed. "What was that?" I asked. Hartman lowered a listening device connected to hospital audio feeds from a cooperating investigator. A few seconds later, the answer came through the speaker. "Mom," Leo had asked, "when do I get to meet Grandpa Conrad?" My heart stopped. Lily looked down at the floor before answering softly. "You won't, sweetheart." "Why not?" Leo asked. Lily swallowed hard. "Because Grandpa Conrad left us a long time ago." Leo stared at her. "Do you believe that?" he asked. The room became silent. Lily didn't answer. For the first time since I returned home, doubt appeared in her eyes. Real doubt, not about me. About the story Pamela had told her for 15 years. Then Leo reached beneath his pillow and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "Aunt Pamela told me to throw this away," he said. But I didn't. Lily unfolded the paper. Her eyes widened. Color drained from her face. "Where did you get this?" she whispered. Leo shrugged. "It was inside an old box in the attic." My pulse accelerated. The attic. The storage room. The missing letters. Lily stared at the paper as if she had seen a ghost. Then she whispered 6 words that changed everything. "This is my father's handwriting." At that moment, I knew the lies surrounding my disappearance were beginning to crack. But I had no idea that the biggest secret wasn't hidden inside Pamela's house. It was hidden inside the fire that had orphaned Leo 8 years earlier. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about the look on Lily's face when she saw the letter. For 15 years, Pamela had controlled my daughter through lies. Now, for the first time, one of those lies had cracked. The next morning, Hartman arrived at my hotel carrying 3 thick folders. His expression told me the news wasn't good. "I traced the trust fund," he said. I immediately sat forward. Before disappearing 15 years earlier, I had created a protected trust worth nearly $12 million. The purpose was simple. If anything happened to me, Lily would never struggle financially. Every medical bill, every tuition payment, every emergency expense was supposed to be covered automatically. "Tell me Lily received it," I said. Hartman didn't answer. Instead, he opened the first folder. Inside were hundreds of transaction records. The money had left the trust exactly as intended. Every month, every year, without interruption. My heart lifted for a moment. Then Hartman turned another page. The funds had never reached Lily. Every transfer had been redirected into accounts controlled by Pamela. I stared at the numbers. Hundreds of thousands. Then millions. Year after year. "How much?" I asked quietly. Hartman swallowed. "Just over $9 million. The room fell silent. Pamela hadn't simply manipulated Lily. She had stolen her entire future. I forced myself to keep reading. The deeper we looked, the uglier it became. Medical reimbursements intended for Leo had been redirected. Educational grants had disappeared. Emergency assistance funds had vanished. Pamela had taken everything. Yet somehow, Lily still believed the family was drowning in debt. "How?" I asked. "How could Lily never notice?" Hartman slid another document across the table. The answer was waiting there. Fake invoices, fake loan statements, fake hospital bills. Pamela had created an entire fictional financial crisis. Every month, she showed Lily new paperwork, proving Leo's treatment was becoming more expensive. Every month, Lily worked harder to help. Every month, Pamela stole more money. I felt sick. My daughter had spent years scrubbing floors and sleeping in an attic, while millions legally belonging to her sat in Pamela's accounts. Then Hartman opened the second folder. "There's more." My stomach tightened. Of course there is. The trust wasn't redirected by Pamela alone. I looked up. "What do you mean?" Hartman pointed toward a signature appearing throughout the records. A second authorization name, one that appeared again and again beside Pamela's. The moment I read it, my blood turned cold. Victor Hale, my former business partner, my best friend for nearly 20 years, the man who stood beside me at my wedding, the man I trusted enough to make temporary guardian of certain assets before I disappeared. Suddenly, dozens of unanswered questions started fitting together. Pamela never had the intelligence to build something this complicated alone. Victor did. Hartman leaned forward. "Conrad, I think Victor helped create the entire scheme." "No," I said quietly. "I think Victor created it." The room became silent. Then Hartman's phone rang. He answered. listened for several seconds, and slowly lowered it. "What now?" I asked. "One of our investigators just finished reviewing the records connected to Leo's house fire." My pulse quickened. "And?" Hartman looked directly at me. "Victor's company handled the cleanup." For several seconds, neither of us spoke. 15 years ago, Victor was connected to my disappearance. 8 years ago, Victor appeared around the fire that killed Leo's family. Now he was connected to millions stolen from Lily. It was no longer coincidence. It was a pattern. A dangerous one. I stood and walked toward the window. Somewhere across the city, Lily was probably cleaning another floor, while believing she owed everything to Pamela. She had no idea the woman she trusted had robbed her for nearly half her life. Then Hartman's phone vibrated again. A text message appeared from another investigator watching the mansion. His face immediately changed. "Conrad." "What?" "Pamela just left the house. Where is she going?" Hartman looked down at the screen. "She's meeting someone." "Who?" He turned the phone toward me. A surveillance photo filled the display. An expensive black sedan had just arrived outside a private country club. A man stepped out of the driver's seat. Even after 15 years, I recognized him instantly. Victor Hale, my former best friend. The man I once trusted more than my own brother. The man who might have stolen my daughter, my fortune, and perhaps far more than that. Then a second photo arrived. This one hit even harder. Victor wasn't alone. Standing beside him was a woman I never expected to see again. A woman officially declared dead 10 years earlier. The moment I saw her face, every hair on my body stood up. Because if the photo was real, someone had been lying about much more than money. And the truth behind Leo's fire was about to become far more dangerous than I imagined. The photograph sat on the table between Hartman and me like a live grenade. I had spent 15 years preparing myself for betrayal, but I wasn't prepared for this. The woman standing beside Victor Hale was supposed to be dead. 10 years earlier, newspapers reported she had died in a boating accident off the coast of Maine. Insurance claims were paid. Assets were transferred. Her death certificate was signed and filed. Yet there she was, smiling beside Victor as if the last decade had never happened. "Who is she?" Hartman asked. I never took my eyes off the picture. "Rebecca Kane." Hartman frowned. "The financial auditor?" I nodded slowly. Rebecca had once worked for my company. Brilliant, meticulous, impossible to bribe. Years ago, she was assigned to review several suspicious transactions connected to Victor. Then suddenly, she disappeared. Months later, the world was told she had died. At the time, I barely questioned it. I was already trapped overseas, fighting for my own survival. Now I realize that may have been exactly what Victor wanted. "Find everything on her," I said. "If she's alive, she didn't stay hidden for 10 years by accident." Hartman immediately began making calls. 2 hours later, we were sitting inside a rented office overlooking downtown Boston, while investigators pulled records from every source they could access. The results were disturbing. Rebecca Kane had no driver's license, no tax filings, no voter registration, no legal existence for almost a decade. Yet someone had purchased properties through shell companies linked to Victor Hale. Millions of dollars had moved through those companies. And every trail eventually disappeared into accounts connected to offshore entities. "Ghost money," Hartman muttered. "Someone has been laundering funds for years." I stared at the screen. Not someone. Victor. Then another report arrived. This one connected directly to Pamela. Multiple payments from Victor-controlled companies had been deposited into accounts under Pamela's name. Monthly. Consistent. For over 15 years. My jaw tightened. Pamela wasn't simply stealing from Lily. She was being paid to do it. "She worked for him," I said, "the entire time." Hartman nodded. "Looks that way." Suddenly everything made sense. Pamela wasn't the mastermind. She was the manager. Victor was the architect. While Pamela controlled Lily inside the house, Victor controlled everything around them. The money, the documents, the trust, the lies. 15 years of manipulation built like a business operation. Then my phone rang. It was one of the investigators stationed near Mercy Children's Hospital. "Mr. Vance," he said urgently, "you need to hear this." My stomach tightened immediately. "What happened?" "A man visited Leo this morning." "Who?" There was a brief pause. "We don't know. He used a visitor badge with a false name." I exchanged a look with Hartman. Did he speak with Leo? For about 10 minutes. What did they discuss? The investigator hesitated. That's the problem. Leo refused to tell anyone. My pulse accelerated. Where is the man now? Gone. I stood up so quickly my chair nearly fell backward. Get me the security footage. Less than 30 minutes later, we were reviewing hospital surveillance video. A tall man wearing a baseball cap entered Leo's room shortly after Lily left. His face remained hidden most of the time. Then, just before he exited the room, he looked toward a hallway camera for less than a second. That was enough. Hartman froze the image. Neither of us spoke. We both recognized him. Victor Hale. My former best friend had personally visited my grandson. The question was, why? We drove to the hospital immediately. By the time we arrived, Leo was awake and playing a strategy game on his tablet. He looked up when we entered. "You're the guy from outside my room," he said, pointing directly at me. I smiled despite everything. "You noticed that? You were staring through the glass. You're observant." People say that a lot. Hartman remained outside while I sat beside the bed. For the first time in years, I felt nervous. Not because of Victor, not because of Pamela, because of a little boy. "Leo," I said gently, "can I ask you something?" He shrugged. "Depends." I almost laughed. "Depends on what? Whether you're going to lie to me." I stared at him. 8 years old, and already asking better questions than most adults. "Fair enough," I said. "A man visited you this morning." Leo's expression changed immediately. He looked toward the door, then toward the window, then back at me. He wasn't scared. He was calculating. "You're talking about the guy in the cap?" "Yes." Leo was silent for several seconds. Finally, he leaned forward. "If I tell you something, will you promise not to tell my mom?" The request surprised me. "Why?" "Because she'll worry." That answer sounded exactly like Lily, protecting others even while carrying her own pain. "Okay," I said. "I promise." Leo lowered his voice. "The man wasn't here to see me." A chill ran through me. "What do you mean?" He asked about a box. "What box?" Leo glanced toward the hallway again. "A metal box." My pulse jumped. "Did he say what was inside?" Leo nodded slowly. "He said people could go to prison if someone found it." Every instinct I possessed suddenly came alive. "And what did you tell him?" Leo smiled slightly. It wasn't a child's smile. It was the smile of someone who knew something valuable. I told him I didn't know. "But you do know?" Leo didn't answer directly. Instead, he reached beneath his mattress and pulled out a folded piece of paper, the same paper Lily had discovered the day before. "This came from the box," he said. My heart skipped a beat. "Where is it?" Leo stared at me carefully. "How do I know I can trust you?" For a moment, I forgot he was 8 years old. The boy had been surrounded by lies his entire life. Trust wasn't automatic for him. It had to be earned. Before I could answer, the door suddenly opened. Lily entered carrying a small paper bag from the hospital cafeteria. She stopped immediately when she saw me sitting beside Leo. Confusion crossed her face, then suspicion, then fear. "Who are you?" she asked. I slowly stood. This wasn't the moment I had planned. Not yet. Not before I had proof. Not before she was ready. Leo looked from me to his mother and back again. Then he said the one thing I never expected to hear. "Mom," he asked quietly, "is Grandpa Conrad really a bad man?" The color drained from Lily's face. The paper bag slipped from her hands and hit the floor. And for the first time since I returned home, my daughter looked at me as if she was seeing a ghost. For several seconds, nobody moved. The paper bag Lily had been carrying lay on the floor beside her feet, while apples rolled across the hospital room. Leo looked from his mother to me, completely unaware that he had just shattered 15 years of carefully constructed lies. Lily's eyes never left my face. I could see her mind fighting a war between memory and reality. She had spent years believing I was dead, a criminal, or worse. Yet something about me had triggered recognition, not certainty, just enough doubt to frighten her. "Leo," she said quietly, never looking away from me, "would you give us a minute?" The boy frowned. "Why?" "Please." Leo glanced at me, then at his mother, then back at me. Finally, he nodded and picked up his tablet. "I'll be in the game room." As he reached the door, he stopped beside me. "Don't leave," he whispered. "I still have questions." Then he disappeared into the hallway. The moment the door closed, the room felt smaller. Lily folded her arms across her chest, as if trying to protect herself. "Who are you?" she asked. I had rehearsed this moment in my head for years. None of those rehearsals prepared me for the pain in her voice. "My name is Conrad Vance." The color drained from her face. "No. Lily, no." She took a step backward. "Stop." I saw tears gathering in her eyes. "Who sent you?" "Nobody sent me." "Pamela?" "No." "Victor?" That name caught my attention immediately. Lily knew Victor. More than I expected. "You know Victor Hale?" I asked. She realized her mistake instantly. Her expression hardened. "Answer my question." I took a slow breath. "I am your father." Lily laughed once. It was the sound people make when reality becomes too painful to accept. "My father disappeared 15 years ago." "I know." "My father abandoned us." "I didn't." "My father never wrote, never called, never came home." I reached into my coat and carefully removed an old envelope. One of the letters Hartman had recovered. The envelope was yellow with age. Her name was written across the front in my handwriting. Lily stared at it. Then another envelope appeared. Then another. Then another. 15 years of birthdays, Christmases, graduations, missed moments. "Those aren't real," she whispered. "They are." "No." Pamela kept every one of them. Her breathing became uneven. "Stop," she intercepted them. "Stop. I wrote every month. Stop." The word echoed through the room. Tears streamed down her cheeks. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she sank slowly into a chair beside Leo's bed. "She told me you forgot us," she whispered. My chest tightened. "I never forgot you." "She told me you took money and ran." "I didn't." "She told me Mom died heartbroken because of you." I felt as if someone had punched me. "Your mother spent her final years trying to find me." Lily stared at me. The certainty she had carried for 15 years was beginning to crack. But cracks don't become trust overnight. "Even if you're telling the truth," she said quietly, "why come back now?" It was a fair question. Maybe the hardest one. I sat across from her. "Because for 15 years I was trapped in places where powerful people wanted me dead. I escaped more than once. Every time I got close to coming home, someone stopped me." "Who?" she asked. "I don't know yet. That wasn't entirely true. I had suspicions." Victor sat at the top of the list. "But suspicions weren't proof." Lily wiped her eyes. "I don't know what to believe anymore." For the first time, that was enough. I wasn't asking for forgiveness. I wasn't asking for love. Doubt was progress. Then she looked directly at me. "Why were you talking to Leo?" "Because I wanted to meet my grandson." Her expression softened for a fraction of a second before caution returned. "Leo trusts people too easily." I almost smiled. "Actually, he doesn't." That surprised her. "What do you mean?" "He made me earn every answer." Despite everything, a tiny smile appeared on her face. "That sounds like him." Then she realized she had smiled and quickly looked away. Before I could say anything else, the door opened. Leo returned carrying his tablet. He stopped immediately when he noticed both of us sitting quietly. "Did you fight?" he asked. "No," Lily answered. "Good." He climbed onto the bed and pointed at me. "Then I still have a question." I raised an eyebrow. "Only one?" "For now." He leaned forward. "If you're really Grandpa Conrad, how did you know about the box?" Every muscle in my body tightened. Lily looked confused. "What box?" Leo's eyes widened. He immediately realized he had said too much. "Nothing." "Leo," Lily said. "What box?" The boy glanced from one of us to the other. Then he sighed dramatically. "The metal box." Silence filled the room. "What metal box?" Lily asked again. Leo lowered his voice. "The one from the attic." My pulse accelerated. Lily's expression changed. "What attic?" "The storage attic above the garage." She stared at him. "I've never seen a metal box." Leo looked genuinely surprised. "I thought you knew." He turned toward me. "That's where I found the letter." Lily slowly sat down again. Everything inside the room had shifted. 15 years of lies, hidden letters, a mysterious box, and now evidence hidden inside Pamela's property. "Leo," I asked carefully, "where is the box now?" The boy hesitated. For the first time since I met him, he looked nervous. "That's the problem." My stomach tightened. What problem? Leo swallowed. I hid it. Where? I don't know anymore. Neither Lily nor I spoke. Leo looked embarrassed. I was scared someone would find it, so I moved it. Then I got sick and had to come back to the hospital. Lily closed her eyes briefly. Leo. I know. Can you remember anything? The boy thought for several seconds. Then his eyes widened. Wait. Both of us leaned forward. What? Leo looked toward the hospital window. I remember a number. What number? He frowned as he concentrated. 37. 37 what? I asked. I don't know. His face suddenly brightened. No, wait. It wasn't on the box. Then where was it? Leo looked directly at me. On a key. The room fell silent. A key. Not just a box. A locked box. Which meant someone had never intended its contents to be found accidentally. Do you still have the key? Lily asked. Leo nodded. My heart skipped a beat. Where? Leo reached beneath his pillow and pulled out a worn blue stuffed dinosaur. He unzipped a hidden pocket in the toy's stomach and removed a small brass key. The number 37 was engraved on one side. Lily stared at it. I stared at it. 15 years of lies. Millions of dollars stolen. A mysterious fire. Victor Hale. Hidden letters. And now a locked metal box connected to all of it. Then my phone vibrated. A text message from Hartman appeared on the screen. 3 words. Victor knows. Run. Before I could react, another message arrived from the same investigator who had tracked Victor earlier. This one included a photo. A black SUV had just entered the hospital parking garage. Standing beside it was Victor Hale, and he wasn't alone. 4 men were with him, all moving toward the hospital entrance. The moment I saw Victor Hale's face on my phone screen, every instinct I had developed over 15 years of survival screamed the same warning. We had run out of time. Lily noticed the change in my expression immediately. What's wrong? She asked. I turned the phone toward her. The color drained from her face. Even after everything, Victor still had power over her. Why is he here? She whispered. Because of the box, I said. Leo looked between us. I told you someone was looking for it. Before anyone could say another word, my phone rang. Hartman. I answered immediately. Talk to me. Victor isn't visiting the hospital, Hartman said. He's searching it. My stomach tightened. For the key? For whatever is inside that box. I glanced at the small brass key resting in Leo's hand. Number 37. Such a simple object. Yet people were willing to move, lie, and possibly kill to find it. How much time do we have? I asked. Minutes. The line went dead. I turned toward Lily. We need to leave. Leave? Now. Conrad, this is a hospital. And Victor didn't bring 4 men because he wanted to send flowers. That finally got through to her. We quickly gathered Leo's belongings. Fortunately, he wasn't connected to any critical equipment at the moment. The doctors had planned to discharge him within 48 hours anyway. As we moved toward the hallway, Leo suddenly grabbed my sleeve. Wait. What? I asked. If Victor is looking for the key, he already knows about the box. I nodded. Probably. Then he's searching the wrong thing. Both Lily and I stared at him. What do you mean? Leo looked almost embarrassed. I moved something else too. I closed my eyes for a second. Of course he did. Leo, I didn't know it was important. What did you move? The boy swallowed. A notebook. My pulse jumped. What notebook? It was inside the box. Lily looked at him in disbelief. You never mentioned a notebook. You never asked. Even under pressure, he somehow sounded completely sincere. What's in it? I asked. Leo shook his head. I couldn't read most of it. It had names, dates, numbers. My heart immediately accelerated. Financial records, transaction logs, evidence, the kind of thing Victor would desperately want hidden. Before I could ask another question, a nurse appeared at the end of the hallway. Mr. Hale is asking if anyone has seen a patient named Leo Vance. Every muscle in my body tightened. Victor was already inside. We immediately turned down a side corridor. The hospital was large, but it wasn't large enough to hide forever. We needed distance. We needed time. Most importantly, we needed to find the box before Victor did. 20 minutes later, we were sitting inside a secure apartment owned by one of Hartman's associates. It wasn't luxurious, but it was safe. For now, Lily sat silently near the window while Leo drank juice and answered questions. The boy eventually revealed that he had found the metal box nearly 6 months earlier while exploring a storage section above the garage. Hidden behind old furniture and dusty holiday decorations, the box had been locked, but the key had been hanging nearby. "You opened it?" I asked. Leo nodded. There were letters inside. Lily immediately looked up. "More letters?" "A lot more." My pulse quickened. "What else?" Leo thought for a moment. "Pictures, papers, a notebook." "What kind of pictures?" Lily asked. Leo's expression changed slightly. "People meeting." "Who?" "Pamela, Victor, some other people." The room fell silent. This was getting bigger by the minute. Then Leo added something that made my blood run cold. There was one picture of Grandpa Conrad, too. Lily slowly turned toward me. "What?" Leo nodded. It looked old. My stomach tightened. What was I doing? Arguing with Victor. Nobody spoke. 15 years ago, before my disappearance, Victor and I had several major disagreements about company finances. Almost nobody knew that. If a photograph existed, it meant someone had been documenting events long before everything collapsed. Hartman arrived shortly afterward, carrying several folders. The moment he entered, I knew he had found something. "Victor owns the company that managed cleanup after the fire," he said. We already knew that. "No," Hartman replied. "You don't understand." He opened a folder and spread photographs across the table. Burned walls, destroyed rooms, fire investigators. Then one image stopped me cold. A metal safe, hidden inside the remains of the house. "What's that?" Lily asked. Hartman pointed toward the safe. "Investigators reported it was empty." "And?" I asked. Hartman slid another photograph forward. This one had never appeared in the official report. The safe wasn't empty. It contained a metal box, the same size, the same shape, the same design Leo described. Nobody spoke for several seconds. Then Lily whispered, "You're saying the box came from the fire?" Hartman nodded. "Yes." Suddenly everything connected. Leo survived the fire. The box survived the fire. Victor cleaned up the scene. And somehow the box ended up hidden inside Pamela's attic. This wasn't random anymore. It was deliberate. Somebody had moved that evidence. Somebody had hidden it. And somebody desperately wanted it back. Then Hartman's phone rang. He listened for nearly a minute before hanging up. His expression had completely changed. "What now?" I asked. "We found Rebecca Kane." The room went silent. The woman who was supposed to be dead. The woman photographed beside Victor. "Where?" I asked. Hartman looked directly at me. "She wants to meet." "Why?" "Because she says she's tired of running." My pulse accelerated. "When?" "Tonight." "And?" Hartman hesitated. "She claims she knows who started the fire." The room became completely silent. For 8 years, everyone believed the fire was an accident. Now, for the first time, someone was claiming otherwise. Lily slowly sat down. Leo stopped drinking his juice. Even Hartman looked unsettled. Then he said the words that changed everything. "Rebecca says Leo's parents were never the intended targets." A chill ran through my body. "Who was?" Hartman stared at me. "According to her, the fire was meant to destroy evidence connected to Victor Hale." Nobody spoke. Because suddenly, the fire wasn't just a tragedy, it was a cover-up. And somewhere out there, a woman who had spent 10 years pretending to be dead was about to tell us why. I spent most of that evening expecting a trap. People do not fake their own deaths for 10 years and suddenly decide to help unless something has changed. Rebecca Kane had vanished from the world without leaving a trace. Now she wanted to talk. Either she was desperate or she was lying. Neither possibility made me comfortable. The meeting was arranged at an abandoned marina nearly 30 miles outside Boston. By the time we arrived, darkness had settled over the water. A cold wind rolled across the docks, rattling loose chains against rusted metal posts. Hartman stepped out first and checked the area while Lily, Leo, and I remained inside the vehicle. Nobody spoke. Finally, a lone figure emerged from the shadows, a woman wearing a dark coat and baseball cap. Even after 10 years, I recognized her immediately. Rebecca Kane. She looked older, thinner, and far more cautious than the woman I remembered. but it was her. Hartman gave a slight nod. The area appeared clear. I stepped out and approached her. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then Rebecca looked directly at me and said the last thing I expected to hear. "I'm sorry." The words caught me off guard. "For what?" she swallowed. "For not warning you before everything collapsed." Anger flashed through me. 15 years of anger. 15 years of questions. But I forced myself to stay focused. "Start talking." Rebecca nodded. "Victor wasn't stealing from your company when I found him." "What?" "He was laundering money." My pulse accelerated. "For who?" Rebecca hesitated. "I never learned all the names." She opened a weathered folder and handed it to me. Inside were transaction reports, photographs, and internal accounting records. My eyes moved quickly across the pages. Millions of dollars, shell companies, fake contracts, offshore accounts. It was worse than I imagined. Victor hadn't been stealing from me. He had been using my company as cover for a much larger criminal operation. When I discovered it, Rebecca continued, I started collecting evidence. "The notebook." She nodded. "The notebook." Suddenly, Leo's missing notebook became far more important. "What was inside?" I asked. "Names, payments, account numbers. People Victor paid to stay silent." "Including Pamela?" Lily asked quietly. Rebecca looked at her. "Especially Pamela." The words hit Lily harder than anyone else. I saw it in her face. She had spent years convincing herself Pamela wasn't evil, controlling, manipulative, cruel, but not evil. Now that belief was beginning to die. Rebecca continued. "Pamela wasn't family to Victor. She was an employee." Lily lowered her eyes. "No, I'm sorry," Rebecca said. "It's true." The silence that followed felt heavy. Then Rebecca pulled another photograph from the folder. This was taken 6 weeks before the fire. She handed it directly to Lily. I watched my daughter's face lose color. "What is it?" I asked. Lily turned the photograph around. My stomach tightened instantly. It showed Pamela and Victor standing together beside a black SUV. They were exchanging envelopes filled with cash. The date stamp matched the records. Years before Leo entered our lives. Years before the fire. Years before any excuse Pamela could invent. "She lied to me," Lily whispered. Rebecca's voice remained calm. "She lied to everyone." For a moment, I thought Lily might cry. Instead, something else happened. Something far more important. Her expression hardened. The woman who had spent 15 years apologizing for everything suddenly looked angry. Truly angry. "How much did she know?" Lily asked. "Everything," Rebecca answered. "She knew Conrad didn't abandon you. She knew the trust fund existed. She knew the letters were real." Lily closed her eyes. A single tear rolled down her cheek. Then she wiped it away. "I defended her," she whispered. Nobody responded. Because there was nothing to say. The realization was punishment enough. Then Rebecca reached into her coat and removed a flash drive. This survived. Hartman immediately stepped forward. "What is it?" "Copies of files from the notebook." My pulse jumped. "You copied it?" Rebecca nodded. "Years ago, I knew Victor would eventually destroy the original. For the first time all night, hope appeared. Evidence, real evidence. Not assumptions, not suspicions, evidence." Then Rebecca's expression changed. The hope disappeared from her face. "There's something else." I immediately recognized the tone. "Bad news." "What?" Rebecca looked directly at Leo. "The notebook isn't what Victor wants most." The boy froze. "Then what does he want?" Rebecca slowly pointed toward the brass key hanging from Leo's neck. Everyone went silent. "The key?" Leo asked. Rebecca nodded. "That key doesn't unlock the metal box." My heart stopped. "What?" "The box was a decoy." Nobody spoke. Rebecca continued. "The real evidence was hidden somewhere else." "Then what does the key open?" I asked. Rebecca took a deep breath. "A safety deposit box." Hartman's eyes widened. Mine probably did too. A bank box. Not a storage box, not a filing cabinet. A secure deposit box, which meant whoever created it expected powerful people to come looking. "What's inside?" Lily asked. Rebecca's face turned pale. "Enough evidence to destroy Victor Hale forever." For several seconds, nobody moved. Then Leo quietly asked the question all of us were thinking. "Then why hasn't anyone opened it?" Rebecca looked at him sadly. Because the second key disappeared 8 years ago. The dock fell silent, except for the sound of water striking wood below us. 1 key. 2 keys required. And half of the puzzle had been missing since the night of the fire. Then Hartman's phone suddenly rang. He answered immediately. His expression changed after only a few seconds. "What happened?" I asked. Hartman slowly lowered the phone. "Victor just entered Pamela's house." Nobody reacted at first. Then he continued, "They've started tearing the place apart." My pulse accelerated. Looking for what? Hartman looked directly at Leo. "The notebook." Rebecca shook her head immediately. "Then they're too late." We all turned toward her. "Why?" I asked. Rebecca swallowed. "Because I know where Leo hid it." The dock went completely silent. After months of searching, after years of lies, after deaths, thefts, and betrayal, someone finally knew where the notebook was. Then Rebecca said 7 words that made my blood run cold. "The notebook isn't hidden anymore." "What do you mean?" Lily asked. Rebecca looked toward the dark water behind us. "Someone found it yesterday." Nobody spoke. "Who?" I finally asked. Rebecca's answer arrived like a gunshot. "Victor's people." The world seemed to stop moving for a second. Because if Victor already had the notebook, then the game we thought we were winning might already be lost. For several seconds, nobody spoke. The cold wind from the marina seemed to disappear as Rebecca's words settled over us. Victor's people had found the notebook. The one piece of evidence we believed could expose everything. 15 years of theft, fraud, money laundering, the truth behind the fire, gone. Lily was the first to break the silence. "Then it's over." Rebecca immediately shook her head. "No." Lily looked at her. "You just said Victor has the notebook. I said his people found it. What's the difference?" Rebecca hesitated. "Because Victor doesn't have it." My pulse jumped. "Explain." Rebecca looked toward the water before answering. "Yesterday morning, one of Victor's men recovered the notebook from an abandoned storage unit." Hope flickered briefly before she continued. 3 hours later, he disappeared. The hope vanished. "Disappeared?" Hartman asked. Rebecca nodded. "His phone went dead. His vehicle was found abandoned. Nobody has seen him since." A heavy silence settled over the group. Even Victor's own people weren't safe anymore. That meant one thing. Someone else was moving pieces on the board. Someone we hadn't identified yet. "Who took him?" I asked. Rebecca's face hardened. "That's the problem. I don't know." For the first time since meeting her, she looked genuinely afraid. "Victor doesn't know either." That got my attention. Victor Hale was a man who controlled everything around him. If he was losing track of events, the situation was bigger than we thought. Then Leo quietly spoke. "Maybe the notebook isn't the important thing." Everyone looked at him. "What do you mean?" Lily asked. Leo shrugged. "If Victor already knew the notebook existed, why spend 8 years looking for it?" Nobody answered. The boy continued. "Wouldn't he already know what was inside?" The room went silent. Hartman slowly nodded. "The kid has a point." Rebecca stared at Leo for several seconds before turning toward me. "He's right." My pulse accelerated. Then what was Victor really searching for? Rebecca looked at the brass key hanging around Leo's neck. Proof. Suddenly everything clicked. Victor didn't need information. He already knew what crimes he committed. He needed to know how much evidence survived, whether anyone else could prove it, whether anyone else could destroy him. Then another thought hit me. The second key. Rebecca looked up immediately. Exactly. The safety deposit box. The real target. If Victor found the second key, he could access whatever evidence remained hidden. If we found it first, we could end him. Hartman immediately opened his laptop. "Let's assume the box exists. Where is it?" Rebecca answered without hesitation. "Boston Federal Trust." I stared at her. "You know the bank?" "I helped set it up." My heartbeat accelerated. We were finally getting somewhere. Then Rebecca added the worst possible news. "Victor knows the bank too." Of course he did. Nothing was ever easy. Before anyone could speak again, my phone vibrated. It was one of Hartman's investigators watching Pamela's mansion. I answered immediately. "Talk." The man's voice sounded breathless. "Something happened." "What?" "Pamela and Victor are fighting." Everyone around me instantly paid attention. "About what?" There was a brief pause. "The notebook." My pulse quickened. "Keep talking." "Victor thinks Pamela lied to him." That surprised me. Pamela lying wasn't surprising. Victor not knowing about it was. How bad is it? I asked. Bad. Victor just threatened her. Lily's eyes widened. Even after everything, hearing that still affected her. Can you hear what they're saying? I asked. The investigator lowered his voice. Most of it. Victor keeps asking about a second key. Every muscle in my body tightened. And Pamela? She says she doesn't know anything. Rebecca laughed bitterly. She's lying. How do you know? Lily asked. Rebecca looked directly at her. Because Pamela was there the night of the fire. The world seemed to stop. Lily stared at her. What? Rebecca swallowed. Victor wasn't the only person who arrived after the fire started. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Pamela was there too. The silence became suffocating. Lily's face turned pale. No, I'm sorry. Rebecca's voice softened. I saw her myself. You're wrong. I'm not. Lily stood abruptly and turned away. I understood why. Discovering Pamela stole money was one thing. Discovering she lied was another. But discovering she may have been connected to the fire that destroyed Leo's family? That was different. That crossed into something darker, something criminal, something evil. Then Hartman's laptop suddenly chimed. An alert appeared on the screen. He froze. Conrad. What? We have a problem. My stomach tightened. Another one? Hartman turned the screen toward me. A bank access notification had appeared from Boston Federal Trust. The timestamp was less than 10 minutes old. Tell me that's not what I think it is. Hartman didn't answer immediately. He didn't need to. The answer was already on his face. Someone had just attempted to access a safety deposit box registered under a dead man's identity. The same identity connected to the fire. The same identity connected to the missing second key. Was it opened? I asked. Hartman quickly checked the record. Then his expression changed. No. Relief washed through me. Briefly. Why not? Hartman looked directly at Rebecca. Because the bank requires 2 keys. The relief vanished. We already knew that. Then Hartman scrolled further down. Suddenly his face went white. What now? I asked. He looked at the screen for several seconds before answering. The person who tried to access the box wasn't Victor. Silence. Complete silence. Even the wind seemed to disappear. Then who was it? Lily asked quietly. Hartman slowly turned the laptop around. A security camera image filled the display. The photo was grainy but clear enough to identify the visitor. Rebecca stared at it first. Then she stumbled backward. No. My pulse exploded. You know him? Rebecca's face had completely lost color. That's impossible. Who is he? I demanded. Her eyes never left the screen. Because that man died 8 years ago. Nobody spoke. Nobody breathed. Then Rebecca whispered the words that changed everything. That's Leo's father. The marina fell completely silent. 8 years earlier, everyone believed Leo's parents died in the fire. Now a man officially declared dead had just attempted to access the same safety deposit box Victor desperately wanted, which meant one thing. Somebody had lied about far more than a fire. And somewhere out there, a dead man was still alive. Nobody spoke for several seconds after Rebecca revealed the man in the security image was Leo's father. The marina seemed frozen in time. Waves struck the dock below us, but nobody moved. Nobody breathed. 8 years earlier, 2 parents were reported dead in a house fire, yet one of them had just appeared at a bank connected to Victor Hale's secrets. The first person to recover was Leo. So my dad is alive? He asked quietly. Rebecca closed her eyes. I don't know. Leo frowned. You just said that's him. It looks like him. Rebecca replied carefully. But after everything I've seen, I don't trust appearances anymore. I understood exactly what she meant. Too many dead people were suddenly alive. Too many truths were turning into lies. Hartman enlarged the image on his laptop. The man's face became clearer, older, thinner. A beard covered most of his jawline. But the resemblance was undeniable. Can the bank identify him? I asked. Hartman shook his head. The visitor used forged identification. Of course he did. Then another detail caught my attention. Wait. Everyone looked at me. I pointed toward the timestamp in the corner of the security image. The attempted access happened less than 10 minutes before we received the alert. Hartman's eyes widened. He immediately understood. Meaning? Lily asked. Meaning he might still be nearby. Suddenly, everyone was moving. Within minutes, we left the marina and headed toward Boston Federal Trust. The drive felt endless. Every traffic light seemed determined to slow us down. Every passing minute increased the chance of losing the only lead we had. When we finally arrived, 2 investigators hired by Hartman were already waiting outside. One approached immediately. "You're too late." My stomach tightened. "He left?" The investigator nodded. "About 20 minutes ago. Did anyone follow him?" We tried. "And?" The investigator looked frustrated. He knew exactly what he was doing. Switched vehicles twice. Disappeared near the harbor. That wasn't the behavior of a grieving father. It was the behavior of someone trained to avoid surveillance. Inside the bank, the manager reluctantly agreed to meet us after Hartman presented legal documentation. She couldn't reveal everything, but she confirmed one important detail. The visitor had requested access to safety deposit box number 37. Leo immediately looked down at the key hanging around his neck. Number 37. The same number engraved into the brass key. The connection was now undeniable. "Was the box opened?" I asked. The manager shook her head. "No. 2 keys are required." "Did he say anything?" She hesitated. "Only one thing." "What?" The manager looked uncomfortable. "He said he had finally run out of time." A chill ran through me. Whoever this man was, he wasn't casually searching for old documents. He was desperate. Then she handed us a copy of the visitor log. Most of it was useless. Fake names, fake addresses, fake identification. But one detail stood out. The man had written a short note before leaving. 7 handwritten words. "If Victor finds it, everyone dies." Nobody spoke. Even Leo looked frightened now. The warning felt genuine, not dramatic, not theatrical. Genuine. Someone believed lives were in immediate danger. Then Rebecca slowly sat down. The color had drained from her face. "I know that handwriting." My pulse jumped. "What?" She pointed toward the note. "That's him." "Leo's father?" I asked. Rebecca nodded. "I'm sure of it." Lily stared at the paper. "Then why would he disappear for 8 years?" Rebecca didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked out the bank window toward the city skyline. "Because he witnessed what happened after the fire." Silence. Then I asked the question everyone was thinking. "What happened after the fire?" Rebecca swallowed hard. "People died. The parents died." "No." Her voice dropped lower. "Other people." A chill moved through my body. "How many?" "At least 3. Nobody had ever mentioned additional deaths. Every official report described a tragic residential fire with 2 fatalities. Rebecca slowly looked at me. "The reports were altered." "By Victor?" I asked. She nodded. "Victor didn't just cover up evidence. He covered up murders." The room fell silent. The story we had been chasing for weeks suddenly became much darker. This wasn't financial fraud anymore. It wasn't theft. It wasn't manipulation. It was homicide. Then Hartman's phone rang. He answered immediately. As he listened, his expression changed. "What happened?" I asked. He lowered the phone slowly. "Victor just left Pamela's house." "And?" "He's heading here." My pulse accelerated. "How long?" 15 minutes, maybe less." We looked at each other. Victor knew about the bank. He knew about the key, and now he was coming personally. Then something unexpected happened. Leo stood up. "I remember something." Every head turned toward him. "What?" Lily asked. Leo frowned as he concentrated. "The day I found the box." Nobody interrupted him. I thought I was alone in the attic. "You weren't?" I asked. Leo shook his head. There was somebody else there. My heartbeat quickened. "Who?" Leo closed his eyes. I couldn't see his face. "Why not?" "Because he left before I climbed up." The room fell silent. "What do you remember?" I asked. Leo thought for several seconds. Then his eyes suddenly widened. The voice. "What about it?" Leo slowly looked at Rebecca. I heard him arguing with someone on the phone. Rebecca stared back at him. "And?" Leo swallowed. "He said your name." Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Rebecca's face went completely white. "What exactly did he say?" Leo's voice became almost a whisper. "He said, 'Rebecca is still alive. If she talks, we're finished.'" The entire room fell silent. Because 8 years ago, someone already knew Rebecca survived. Someone had been protecting that secret long before we ever started looking. Then Leo spoke again. And there was something else. My pulse hammered in my ears. What? Leo looked directly at me. The man on the phone called Victor. Boss. Nobody said a word. Because if the man in the bank was Leo's father, and 8 years ago he called Victor his boss, then one horrifying possibility suddenly appeared. Leo's father wasn't running from Victor. He had once worked for him. The room remained silent long after Leo revealed that his biological father had once worked for Victor Hale. Nobody rushed to speak. Nobody rushed to draw conclusions. For the first time in weeks, I forced myself to slow down. Too many answers had appeared too quickly, and that was exactly how people made mistakes. Victor wanted confusion. He wanted us chasing shadows. What mattered now wasn't finding another mystery. It was understanding the one standing directly in front of us. Victor Hale. Everything led back to him. The stolen trust fund, Pamela's lies, the hidden letters, the fire, the notebook, the safety deposit box. Every road eventually ended at the same man. Hartman's phone vibrated again. One of our investigators had continued tracking Victor's movements after he left Pamela's mansion. The update was short. Victor had arrived at a private office building he secretly owned downtown. He's nervous, Hartman said. Good, I replied. He should be. Rebecca shook her head. No. Nervous Victor is dangerous, Victor. Everyone looked at her. What does that mean? Lily asked. Rebecca leaned back in her chair. Victor spent years believing nobody could touch him. When he feels threatened, he doesn't run. What does he do? I asked. Rebecca met my eyes. He removes problems. Nobody needed clarification. We all understood exactly what she meant. Then another thought hit me. If Victor thinks we're close to the evidence, why hasn't he come after us directly? Rebecca answered immediately. Because he doesn't know what we have. That made sense. Victor knew pieces were moving. He knew someone was investigating. But he didn't know whether we possessed the notebook, the second key, or the contents of the safety deposit box. Uncertainty was the only thing keeping him cautious. Then Leo quietly spoke. What if he already knows? Everyone turned toward him. Knows what? Lily asked. That we're together. The room went silent. I hated how reasonable the question was. For years, Victor had controlled information. It would be foolish to assume he wasn't watching us now. Hartman immediately picked up his phone and began checking security reports. Less than a minute later, his expression hardened. We may have a problem. My stomach tightened. What now? He turned the screen toward us. A photograph taken less than an hour earlier appeared. It showed the apartment building where we were hiding. Across the street sat a black SUV, the same vehicle investigators had seen following Victor's people. Lily slowly sat down. They found us. Rebecca nodded grimly, which means Victor is finished waiting. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then something unexpected happened. Lily stood up. Not frightened, not emotional, calm, focused. I'm done hiding. I looked at her carefully. This wasn't the same woman I had seen cleaning floors in Pamela's kitchen. Something had changed. What are you thinking? I asked. Lily took a slow breath. For 15 years, Victor and Pamela controlled everything because they always knew what everyone else would do. Nobody interrupted. Victor expects us to run. Probably, Hartman agreed. Pamela expects me to stay afraid, Lily continued. So, let's do the opposite. For the first time all night, I smiled. Go on. Lily walked to the table and pointed toward the photograph of Victor's office building. Victor wants the safety deposit box. Yes. Victor wants the second key. Yes. And Victor wants to know what we know. She looked directly at me. Let's give him an answer. Rebecca frowned. What kind of answer? Lily's eyes hardened. A fake one. The room fell silent. Then slowly, very slowly, the plan began taking shape. Instead of hiding the existence of the key, we would let Victor believe we were preparing to access the safety deposit box immediately. We would leak just enough information to force him into action. If Victor moved, he would expose himself. If he exposed himself, we could finally stop reacting and start controlling the game. Hartman nodded first. It could work. Rebecca looked uncertain. Or it could get someone killed. Someone is already trying to kill us, Lily replied. At least this way we choose the battlefield. I stared at my daughter. For the first time since returning home, I wasn't seeing the frightened woman trapped inside Pamela's house. I was seeing the strength she had hidden for years, the strength that led her to adopt Leo, the strength that kept her alive. Maybe Victor had underestimated her for too long. Maybe I had too. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. Everyone immediately became silent. I answered. Hello? The voice on the other end was calm. Familiar. Dangerous. Good evening, Conrad. Every muscle in my body locked. Victor Hale. The room instantly went still. Victor. A soft laugh came through the phone. It's been a long time. Not long enough. Still dramatic. Some things never change. I didn't respond. Victor wasn't calling to exchange memories. He wanted something. You found Lily, he said casually. My grip tightened around the phone. Leave her out of this. That's difficult. She's already in it. Lily's face hardened when she heard his voice. Victor continued. You know, I always wondered what would happen if you came back. And now you know. Not yet. There was a pause. Then his tone changed completely. The humor vanished. Listen carefully, Conrad. The room seemed to shrink, walk away. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Victor continued. Take Lily. Take the boy. Leave Boston. Disappear. You still have enough money to enjoy whatever years you have left. I laughed once. You're scared. Silence. Then Victor laughed too, but there was no warmth in it. No, I'm being polite. Every instinct I possessed told me the conversation was reaching its real purpose. Then Victor said the words he had called to deliver. Because next time, I won't be. The line went dead. Nobody spoke for several seconds. Then another phone vibrated. Not mine. Leo's. The boy frowned and looked down at the screen. That's weird. Lily immediately stepped forward. What? Leo slowly turned the phone around. A single photograph filled the display. The image showed the entrance to Mercy Children's Hospital. It had been taken only minutes earlier. At the bottom of the photo was a message. 5 simple words. We know where he goes. The room fell completely silent. Because Victor hadn't just threatened me. He had threatened Leo. Nobody slept that night. Victor's message changed everything. Until now, the fight had been about money, evidence, and secrets. The photograph sent to Leo's phone made it personal. Victor wasn't threatening documents anymore. He was threatening a child. By sunrise, every person in the apartment understood the same thing. We couldn't stay on defense. If we kept reacting, Victor would eventually find a weakness. Hartman spent the night arranging additional security, while Rebecca reviewed old records searching for anything Victor might have overlooked. I sat at the kitchen table, drinking coffee that had gone cold hours earlier. Across from me, Lily was studying the photograph Victor sent. She had barely spoken since midnight. Finally, she put the phone down and looked directly at me. Let's do it. Do what? I asked. The trap. There was no hesitation in her voice anymore. Fear had finally been replaced by anger. Hartman joined us a few minutes later. I've been thinking about the bank. So have I said. Victor believes we're trying to open the safety deposit box, Lily added. Hartman nodded. Which means he'll be watching the bank. Good, Lily said. That's exactly what we want. For the next several hours, we built a plan. Not a complicated plan. Simple plans survive pressure. Complex plans fall apart. We would leak information suggesting we intended to access the safety deposit box the following afternoon. Victor would hear about it through the same people he used to monitor us. He would believe the evidence was finally within reach. And when he moved to stop us, we'd be waiting. Rebecca wasn't convinced. Victor isn't stupid. I know, Lily replied. That's why he'll come personally. Nobody argued. Victor had spent 15 years protecting his empire. He wasn't going to trust someone else with its survival. Around noon, one of Hartman's investigators deliberately leaked information through a source known to be connected to Victor. Within an hour, the bait was in the water. By evening, we received confirmation. Victor had canceled 3 meetings scheduled for the next day. He's coming, Hartman said. For the first time in days, it felt like we were ahead. Then Leo walked into the room holding a notebook. Can I ask something? Of course, Lily said. If Victor wants the box so badly, why doesn't he destroy it? The question made everyone stop. Rebecca looked up first. Because he can't. Why not? Leo asked. Rebecca leaned back. Because he doesn't know exactly what's inside. The boy frowned. Then neither do we. Silence followed. Then I slowly smiled. Leo was right. We had spent weeks chasing the box without knowing its contents. We assumed it contained evidence. We assumed it could destroy Victor. But assumptions weren't facts. That realization bothered me more than I wanted to admit. Then my phone rang. The caller ID displayed a blocked number. I answered cautiously. Hello? The voice on the other end was shaking, terrified. Mr. Vance? Who is this? There was a pause. My name doesn't matter. I immediately recognized the fear in his voice. The man believed he was in danger. What do you want? I used to work for Victor Hale. Every person in the room instantly paid attention. Go on. He's preparing to leave. My pulse accelerated. Leave where? The country. Nobody spoke. The caller continued. Victor doesn't think he can stop you anymore. That surprised me. Victor never struck me as a man who ran. When? I asked. Tomorrow night. The room became silent. Tomorrow night. Less than 36 hours away. The caller took a shaky breath. Listen carefully. Victor isn't trying to recover evidence anymore. A chill ran through my body. Then what is he trying to do? The answer came immediately. Destroy it. The call ended before I could ask another question. For several seconds, nobody moved. Then Rebecca spoke. He's right. How do you know? Hartman asked. Rebecca looked toward the window. Because that's exactly what Victor would do. The reality hit us all at once. We had been assuming Victor wanted the evidence for himself. But if he believed exposure was inevitable, he would choose a different solution. Eliminate everything. Burn every document. Destroy every witness. Erase every trail. The same strategy used after the fire. Suddenly, the next 24 hours became far more dangerous. This wasn't about winning anymore. It was about survival. Then another message arrived on Hartman's phone. He opened it and immediately froze. What now? I asked. Slowly, he turned the screen around. A surveillance image filled the display. Victor had been photographed entering a warehouse near the harbor less than 15 minutes earlier. Ordinarily, that wouldn't matter. This time it did, because standing beside him was Pamela. Lily stared at the image. Why are they meeting? Nobody answered. Then Hartman zoomed in. The blood drained from Rebecca's face instantly. No. I looked at her. What? She pointed toward the warehouse entrance. A familiar symbol was painted on the steel door. A symbol she hadn't seen in years. That's where it happened. My pulse exploded. What happened? Rebecca swallowed hard. The night of the fire. The room went silent. Victor used that warehouse as a staging location. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Rebecca slowly looked up. If Victor and Pamela are there tonight, they aren't preparing to run. Then what are they doing? Lily whispered. Rebecca's answer landed like a hammer. They're preparing to destroy the last evidence. The apartment fell completely silent, because for the first time, we finally knew where the endgame would happen. Not at the bank, not in a courtroom, not in Victor's office. It was waiting inside a warehouse connected to the very fire that started everything 8 years ago. I spent most of the night staring at the warehouse photograph. For 8 years, that building had existed in the background of every tragedy connected to Leo. The fire, the missing notebook, the stolen evidence, the lies. Now Victor Hale and Pamela had willingly walked back into it. People only returned to places like that for one reason: to finish unfinished business. By sunrise, we had a plan. Unlike the trap involving the bank, this one carried real risk. Victor was no longer protecting himself. He was cornered. Cornered men make dangerous decisions. Hartman arranged surveillance around the warehouse, while Rebecca reviewed old records connected to the fire. Lily insisted on coming despite every objection. "This is my fight too," she said. Nobody argued. She had earned that right. By late afternoon, our team was in position. The warehouse sat near the harbor, isolated from most traffic. Rusted fences surrounded the property. Broken security lights hung from steel poles. On the surface, it looked abandoned, but through binoculars, we counted at least 6 guards. Victor wasn't taking chances. "He's protecting something," Hartman said. "Or destroying something," Rebecca replied. As darkness settled over the harbor, activity increased. Trucks arrived. Men carried crates inside. Security patrols doubled. Everything suggested urgency. Victor was preparing for something big. Then one of Hartman's investigators called. "We've got movement." Everyone turned toward the radio. "Talk." Victor just arrived. Through the binoculars, I watched a black sedan roll through the gate. Victor stepped out first. Pamela followed seconds later. Even from a distance, I could see tension between them. They weren't speaking. They weren't standing close. Whatever trust once existed between them was gone. "Good," Lily whispered. "Let them destroy each other." For nearly an hour, nothing happened. Then another vehicle arrived. This one changed everything. Rebecca immediately leaned forward. "No." My stomach tightened. "What?" She pointed toward the screen connected to the surveillance drone. A man had just stepped out of the vehicle. Tall, bearded, older than the image from the bank, but unmistakable. Leo's father. Nobody spoke. We simply watched him enter the warehouse beside Victor. "He's working with him," Hartman said quietly. "Maybe," Rebecca replied. "Or maybe he's being forced." We didn't know, and right now, we didn't have time to find out. Then, another message came through from the surveillance team. "Conrad, you need to hear this." An audio feed crackled to life. The signal wasn't perfect, but it was enough. Victor's voice filled the speaker. "Tonight it ends." Nobody moved. Victor continued. "Every document, every copy, every loose end." Pamela's voice followed. "And the witnesses?" A long silence. Then Victor answered, "Especially the witnesses." The room went cold. Lily's face lost color. Hartman slowly lowered his head. There was no ambiguity left. Victor wasn't planning an escape. He was planning an elimination. Anyone connected to the truth was now a target. Rebecca, Hartman, Lily, Leo, me. Then the audio feed captured something unexpected. A second voice. Leo's father. This wasn't the deal. Victor laughed softly. "You don't get to negotiate anymore. You promised nobody else would die." The warehouse fell silent. So did we. Then Victor answered. "I lied." My hands closed into fists. For years, Victor had manipulated everyone around him. But hearing him admit it so casually made something inside me snap. The audio continued. Leo's father sounded desperate. "There has to be another way." "There isn't." Victor's tone hardened. "The second key still exists. The evidence still exists. Until both disappear, none of us are safe." Suddenly, the entire story became clear. Leo's father hadn't been protecting Victor. He had been trapped by him. Just like Lily, just like Rebecca, just like so many others. Then the audio feed crackled violently. A struggle, shouting, something heavy crashing into metal. We all froze. "What's happening?" Lily asked. Nobody knew. Then a gunshot exploded through the speaker. Silence followed. Complete silence. The blood drained from my face. "Tell me that wasn't..." Hartman stopped speaking. The radio suddenly came alive. The surveillance investigator was shouting. "Conrad, what happened?" I demanded. "Victor shot someone." The room froze. "Who?" Several agonizing seconds passed. Then the answer came. Leo's father. Lily covered her mouth. Rebecca closed her eyes. Nobody spoke. The investigator continued. "He's still alive. Barely. Victor's men are moving him inside." Rage surged through me. Victor wasn't cleaning up evidence anymore. He was executing people. Then the investigator spoke again. This time his voice was even more urgent. "You need to hear this." More audio crackled through the speaker. Weak, strained, but audible. Leo's father was speaking. "The key." Victor stepped closer. "Where is it?" Silence. Then a painful cough. "You'll never find it." Victor laughed. "I don't need to." Another pause. Then Victor delivered the biggest mistake of his life. "Once the warehouse burns, nobody will ever know what happened 8 years ago." Every person in the room froze. Even the investigator stopped speaking. Victor had just confessed. Not to theft. Not to fraud. To the fire itself. The confession echoed through the room. 8 years of mystery destroyed in a single sentence. Rebecca slowly sat down. Tears filled her eyes. Lily looked stunned. Hartman stared at the speaker. Nobody could believe what we had just heard. Then the investigator shouted again. "Conrad, What now? The warehouse. My pulse exploded. What about it? Victor's men are pouring gasoline everywhere. Silence. Horrible silence. Then the truth settled over us. Victor wasn't threatening to destroy evidence. He was doing it. Right now. Tonight. The same way he tried 8 years ago. Fire. The answer had always been fire. Then another voice suddenly appeared through the radio. Weak. Dying. But unmistakable. Leo's father. Conrad. My entire body locked. He knew my name. Listen carefully. A painful breath followed. The second key. Everyone leaned closer. Where is it? I shouted. The man's voice cracked. Then he whispered 6 words that changed everything. It's inside Leo's dinosaur. The room went completely silent. Slowly, every head turned toward Leo. The boy stared back in confusion. Then realization hit him. The stuffed dinosaur. The toy he carried everywhere. The toy containing key number 37. Suddenly, we understood. The dinosaur wasn't hiding 1 key. It was hiding 2. And Victor had no idea. For 1 terrible second, nobody moved. Every eye in the room turned toward Leo and the blue stuffed dinosaur resting in his lap. The boy looked down at it as if he were seeing it for the first time. There are 2 keys, he whispered. I crossed the room and knelt in front of him. Leo, may I? His hands tightened around the toy. Not because he didn't trust me. Because that dinosaur had been with him through surgeries, hospital nights, fear, loneliness, and every moment when adults failed him. Lily touched his shoulder. Sweetheart, it's okay. Slowly, Leo handed it to me. My fingers found the hidden zipper in the toy's stomach. Inside was the brass key we had already seen, number 37. But beneath the torn lining, tucked so deep no child would have noticed it unless he had searched for comfort 100 times, was something harder, smaller. I pulled it free. A second key, silver. No number, no label. Just a tiny engraved symbol I recognized immediately. Boston Federal Trust. Hartman exhaled sharply. That's it. At the same moment, the radio exploded with shouting. Conrad, the warehouse is burning. I turned toward the surveillance screen. Orange light bloomed inside the building. Smoke curled through broken windows. Victor's men were moving fast now, carrying crates toward the back exit, while flames climbed the walls. Somewhere inside, Leo's father was bleeding, and the evidence from 8 years of crimes was about to vanish in fire. Call the police, Lily said. Hartman shook his head. Already done. But by the time they arrive, then we go now, I said. No one argued. 10 minutes later, we were racing toward the harbor in 2 vehicles. Sirens wailed in the distance, but they were still too far away. The warehouse glowed against the night sky like a furnace. Heat rolled across the pavement as we stopped near the fence. Victor's men had not expected us to arrive so quickly. That was their mistake. My security team moved first, silent and fast, cutting through the side gate and taking down 2 guards before they could shout. Lily stayed behind the vehicle with Leo, but her eyes never left the burning building. My father is in there, Leo said, voice shaking. Lily pulled him close. We're getting him out. Inside the warehouse, smoke stung my eyes. Flames snapped across wooden crates and old oil-stained floors. Hartman shouted directions, while Rebecca pointed toward a side office, where the old staging records had once been kept. Then we heard him. A weak cough. A groan. Leo's father was tied to a chair near the back wall, blood soaking through his shirt. I cut the ropes while Hartman checked his pulse. He's alive. The man opened his eyes and looked at me. Conrad, save your strength. He gripped my sleeve with surprising force. Victor has Pamela. Taking the crates. I turned toward the loading dock just in time to see Pamela dragging a black case toward a van, coughing through the smoke, diamonds still glittering on her fingers, as if greed had survived even fire. Rebecca ran to the case first and kicked it from Pamela's hands. The lid burst open. Files scattered across the concrete. Photographs, ledgers, discs, bank records, proof. Pamela screamed, "You stupid woman! Do you know what you've done?" Rebecca stood over the scattered evidence and said, "What I should have done 10 years ago." Then Victor appeared from behind the van holding a gun. Nobody moves. Everything stopped. Flames roared behind him, painting his face orange and black. He looked less like a businessman now, and more like what he had always been, A man willing to burn children, families, and truth itself to protect his empire. His eyes moved from me to Rebecca, then to the silver key in my hand. He smiled. "You found it." I closed my fist around the key. "It's over, Victor." "No," he said calmly. "It's expensive. There is a difference." Pamela scrambled behind him, sobbing and coughing. "Victor, we need to leave." He didn't even look at her. "Shut up." That single command broke something in Pamela's face. For 15 years, she had imagined herself as queen. Now she realized she had only ever been a disposable servant. Sirens grew louder outside. Victor heard them too. His calm finally cracked. He raised the gun toward Rebecca. "Give me the key, Conrad, or she dies first." I didn't move. Rebecca lifted her chin. "Don't give it to him." Victor's finger tightened. Then Lily stepped into the doorway. "Victor." My heart stopped. She stood in the smoke with Leo behind her, holding her son's hand. Her face was pale, but her voice did not shake. Victor looked amused. "Lily, still trying to matter?" She stepped forward. "You ruined my life because you thought I was weak." "You were weak." "No," she said. "I was patient." Victor laughed. Then Leo raised his phone. On the screen, a red recording light blinked. The entire warehouse went silent. Lily looked directly at Victor. "You confessed to the fire. You threatened witnesses. You pointed a gun at Rebecca. And my son has been live streaming it to Hartman's federal contact for the last 6 minutes." Victor's smile disappeared. Outside, engines screeched, doors slammed, voices shouted. "FBI, drop the weapon." Victor turned, panicked, and that was the opening my security chief needed. He struck Victor from the side, knocking the gun away. Victor hit the concrete hard. Agents poured into the warehouse as firefighters rushed behind them. Pamela tried to run and slipped on scattered papers, falling face first into the evidence she had tried to steal. Brandon wasn't there to save her. No one was. As agents cuffed Victor, he looked at me with pure hatred. "You think this ends me?" I leaned close enough for only him to hear. "No, the bank does." His eyes widened. For the first time, Victor Hale looked afraid. 2 hours later, inside Boston Federal Trust, under federal supervision, both keys turned at the same time. The safety deposit box opened with a quiet metallic click. Inside were ledgers, original recordings, photographs from the night of the fire, proof of stolen trust funds, and one sealed envelope addressed to Lily Vance. Hartman lifted the envelope carefully. Lily's hands trembled as she took it. The handwriting on the front made her knees weaken. It belonged to her mother. And when Lily looked up at me with tears in her eyes, I knew the final truth had been waiting for us all along. 3 days after Victor Hale was arrested, I stood inside a conference room at Boston Federal Trust and watched the final pieces of a 15-year nightmare fall apart. Federal investigators filled the room. Lawyers reviewed documents. Financial analysts examined records recovered from the safety deposit box. Nobody was arguing anymore. Nobody was denying anything. The evidence was overwhelming. Every transfer from Lily's trust fund, every forged signature, every shell company, every payment made to Pamela, every attempt to hide the truth. For 15 years, Victor had built a fortress of lies. In less than 72 hours, it collapsed. Hartman placed a thick report on the table in front of me. "It's over," he said quietly. I looked down at the numbers. More than $9 million stolen from Lily. Hundreds of fraudulent transactions. Years of financial manipulation. The scale of it was almost impossible to comprehend. Then another investigator entered, carrying fresh paperwork. "Victor's accounts have been frozen." Nobody reacted. We were beyond surprises now. "All of them?" Hartman asked. The investigator nodded. "Domestic and international." A small smile appeared on Hartman's face. "Good. For the first time in decades, Victor Hale was no longer a powerful man. He was a defendant, a prisoner, a criminal waiting for trial." Later that afternoon, Lily and I were asked to attend a formal statement session. Pamela was already there. I barely recognized her. The expensive clothes were gone. The confidence was gone. The arrogance was gone. She looked smaller somehow, older, weaker. For years, she had ruled our lives through fear. Now she sat alone at the end of a metal table with tears in her eyes. The moment she saw Lily, she started crying. "Lily?" My daughter didn't answer. Pamela stood slowly. Please. Lily remained silent. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. Still no answer. Pamela's voice broke. But I loved you. For the first time, Lily responded. No. The room became silent. You loved controlling me. Pamela flinched. That's not true. Then why did you steal my letters? Lily asked. Pamela looked away. I was afraid. Why did you take my money? No answer. Why did you make me believe my father abandoned me? Pamela's shoulders shook. I didn't know how to stop. Lily stared at her for several seconds. Then she delivered the sentence that finally ended 15 years of manipulation. You had 15 years to tell the truth. Pamela broke completely. She started crying harder than before. But nobody moved to comfort her. Nobody defended her. There was nothing left to say. Some choices are too large for apologies. As officers escorted Pamela from the room, she looked back one final time. Lily didn't look away. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She simply watched the woman who stole half her life disappear through a door. And that was the end of Pamela's power. Brandon's collapse happened even faster. Investigators uncovered financial fraud, extortion, witness intimidation, and multiple conspiracy charges connected to Victor's operation. Every attempt Brandon made to save himself only made things worse. By the end of the week, he was cooperating with prosecutors in exchange for a reduced sentence. Nobody felt sorry for him. The man who spent years humiliating Lily had become exactly what he feared most. Irrelevant. Victor lasted longer. Men like Victor always do. Even from jail, he tried fighting. He hired attorneys, filed motions, claimed innocence. But the evidence inside the safety deposit box destroyed every defense. The recordings, the financial records, the witness statements. Most damaging of all was the warehouse confession. The same arrogance that built his empire ultimately destroyed it. Within 2 weeks, his companies began collapsing. Investors fled. Partners vanished. Banks closed accounts. News stations covered the scandal daily. One evening, Hartman showed me a television interview discussing Victor's downfall. I watched in silence. 15 years earlier, people viewed Victor Hale as a brilliant businessman. Now the entire country knew what he truly was. Do you feel better? Hartman asked. I thought about the question. Then I shook my head. No. He looked surprised. Why not? I turned off the television. Because none of this gives me those years back. Hartman didn't answer. He understood. Justice matters, but justice doesn't restore lost time. A week later, Lily called me unexpectedly. Can you come over? She asked. Something in her voice made me leave immediately. When I arrived at the mansion, she was waiting in the library, the same library where she had once hidden from Pamela. In her hands was a sealed envelope recovered from the safety deposit box. The envelope addressed to her, the envelope written by her mother. I haven't opened it yet, she whispered. I sat beside her. For several seconds, neither of us moved. Then she carefully broke the seal. Her hands trembled as she unfolded the letter. The room remained completely silent while she began reading. Halfway through the first page, tears appeared in her eyes. What does it say? I asked softly. Lily swallowed hard before answering. Mom says she never believed you abandoned us. My throat tightened instantly. Lily continued reading. Her voice shook. She says every time someone called you a criminal, she defended you. Every time someone said you were gone forever, she refused to believe it. Tears rolled down Lily's face now. Mine weren't far behind. Then she read the final paragraph aloud. If you are reading this, it means the truth finally found its way home. Lily, if your father returns one day, don't waste time being angry. He already lost enough. And Conrad, if you're somehow reading this beside our daughter, know that I loved you until my last breath, and I never stopped believing you would come back to us. The room fell silent. Neither of us spoke. We simply sat there holding a letter written by someone we both missed. After 15 years of lies, manipulation, and pain, the truth arrived in the form of a mother's faith. That was the real victory. Not Victor's arrest, not the money, not the mansion. The truth. 2 months later, Leo was discharged from the hospital following a successful procedure. The day he came home, the weather was perfect. Blue skies, warm sunlight, no reporters, no lawyers, no investigators, just family. I stood in the garden watching him run across the lawn. For a moment, he reminded me of another child, a little girl racing through the same yard years earlier, laughing, dreaming, believing the world was safe. I turned and saw Lily standing on the porch. She smiled at me. Not cautiously, not uncertainly, completely. For the first time in 15 years, my daughter looked happy. Then Leo ran toward us, carrying his blue dinosaur. "Grandpa," he shouted. I laughed and picked him up. The dinosaur fell onto the grass between us. The toy that had unknowingly carried secrets, evidence, and the truth through years of darkness. Now it was just a toy again, exactly as it should be. As the sun began setting over the property, we sat together on the porch watching the light fade across the garden. No one talked about Victor. No one talked about Pamela. Their story was over. Ours wasn't. 15 years ago, they stole my family. They stole my reputation, my future, and the life I should have lived. But in the end, they failed to steal the one thing that mattered most: the truth. And when the truth finally came home, so did we.